Have you ever eaten a woman's thigh?
Turkish people love women's thigh.
It is big and juicy.
Are we still talking about meatball?
KADINBUDU is an incredible meatball, one of the 368 meatballs that Turkey has in its borders. It's great in several dimensions. One, we use a little bit amount of meat and we make a lot of very juicy meatballs. Secondly, usually in the world the meatballs are juicy and tasty when they're hot. But this one gets even better when it's cold. It's great for picnics, it's great for celebration occasions when there's no rush. You can eat it for 4 or 5 days and it's really, really nice. Third, it's a sustainability köfte, meaning if you have some mincemeat from the day before or you have some rice left from a pilav a day before, you can cook this recipe with the leftovers. So it's great in many dimensions as it is. But what we're also gonna do is, you know, we have our dear Bahar. She doesn't eat meat anymore, so we made, especially for her, a vegetarian version, also for you guys. And we call that KADINBUDU. First we make the original recipe and we make the vegetarian version. For this recipe, we're gonna use 300 grams of minced meat. We divide the half and put it on the pan. And we dice one onion, add both of them together in the pan. On low heat, simmer and cook it for about 15 minutes. At this point, for the onions, also for the mincemeat, we put a bit of salt, but that's it. We're gonna add the rest of the salt at the end. At the first 5 minutes, the mincemeat is gonna turn to gray, the onions will start to go transparent. But what we want actually is for the onions to totally disappear. The acidity of the onion is gonna get into the cells of the meat, making it softer, make it more juicier, and actually the sugar in the onion goes to the meat and makes it even a bit more sweeter. After onions totally disappear, add the rest of the salt and a bit of black pepper. Then, second thing is making this meatball more. And we're gonna use rice for it. You can use any kind of rice. If you're from Asia, you can use jasmine, basmati, or even arborio. 3/4 of a cup. I just rinse the rice. I do not wash it and take the starch off. It's like this. And then put some water and we're gonna boil the rice for about 10 minutes. We put a bit of salt, mix it a bit until the rice is now, crunchy. We make sure that it's soft and fluffy. You can do this recipe with the leftover rice, bulgur, even quinoa. All good, but of course rice is a bit better. While the rice is cooking, what we do is take a bit of parsley and a bit of dill. They really go well and nice together, and it's gonna spice up the beautiful köfte. We're gonna mince it. In Turkey, we love mincing. Therefore, I have designed this knife because that rocking action of mincing stuff is the easiest in this shape. We finally chop these herbs. In Turkey, we love using greens in our meatballs, and each one gives a different dimension to it. They're all done. I think my rice is also done. As you can see, it grew really fluffy and big. This rice and the mincemeat should be cold to be mixed, so I'm going to let these rest. Meanwhile, we have this beautiful thing. As you can see, this is the leftover water of the rice. What can you do with this?
Give it to the plants.
Give it to the plants. Good.
We can clean our face.
Can we?
Yeah.
Really, I didn't know that. So Öykü says you can clean your face. Because this is starchy and rich fluid, it can go to stews, it can go to soups. It's gonna add thickness to the liquid of the stew or the soup. And finally, I'm going to try this, whether it can turn into rice milk. Little better than oat milk, little worse than almond milk. We can ask our vegan friend. Bak bakalım.
It's close to oat milk.
Close to oat milk, yes. Maybe the fourth use could be for the vegan friends, make it as a milk. So here comes the fun parts. We have 2 cloves. I'm going to grind it like this. I love this stone. I bought this from Conran shop in London, but I think it's now closing down.
Already closed.
Half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of allspice, half a teaspoon of salt, But this is dependent on whether you're gonna use leftover rice. You need to maybe lessen it a bit of black pepper, and we have, with my face on, the meatball spice. But if you don't have this, you can put a sip of oregano or thyme. You can use both. Cayenne pepper, a bit of cumin. Cumin is always essential in this. In total, we're gonna use like half a teaspoon of all those mixtures. Now, this is the raw meat. I am going to put 1 egg in and then mix it all. This was 150 grams of minced meat. Because it's really quite spicy, I'm going to add the rice in as well. And then comes the kebab-like mincemeat. How to make really nice mincemeat. We have the recipe on this channel with a bit of cauliflower. We make cauliflower Iskandar with it, so nice. You can reach the recipe from here. So we add those as well, together with the rest of the greens. As you can see, the meat was this big. Now we have a mixture of this big. That's what we call bereket. Now, this is our mixture. Normally a meatball is not this soft. But what we are gonna do, we want the inside to be soft and juicy and outside crunchy. And to create that, I am going to put 2 eggs, a bit of flour, and make 2 stations. A bit salt to the egg, salt to the flour as well. We take the veg like this and put it in the flour. We rub it like this and then pat the extra flour away. And this also helps me to shape my meatball. If this sits for about 2 hours, it's easier to make, that I have to tell you. We make this station quite close to the fire because we want like that extra pieces of eggs to float around, make these kind of things that creates extra crunch. When we're cooking it, we're gonna deep fry it. The heat shouldn't be very high so that the little raw meat should cook. Each meatball will take 4 to 5 minutes in the oil cooking. You might say, Refika, I don't want to deep fry things anymore. I have the air fryer, I have the oven. You can do that in the oven or the air fryer, but I wanted to make the original recipe. In the air fryer, put it into 200 degrees. A bit of the egg would fall out, but it's okay. It's still very tasty and it becomes even crunchier. And in the oven, put it in the grill and the fan on. Put it on the second rack and cook it in 220 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes until the surrounding is really changed in color. Now, let's see what we have here. Here we have inside this fluffy, incredibly nice looking thing. Normally, for example, when you have meatball, you want some bread with it or you want potatoes or something. This is by itself a world in it, or some rice. We have the rice in it, we have the meatball all together. Every time I eat it, every time I get surprised on how tasty this is. Çok güzel gerçekten. It's incredible, huh? Come. Have you eaten my KADINBUDU before?
Yeah.
Weird sentence, I know.
This time this is
Better. I have to give a new recipe, but I can't take myself from eating this beautiful thing. Moving on from this gorgeous thing to the vegetarian version. Let's turn this recipe into a vegetarian one. How would we do that? If we take the meat off, we have to check the functions. It gives taste, it holds everything together, and it increases the juiciness. Also, we have the protein to make us more full and feed us better. So, to gain all these together, we're gonna use 2 ingredients. 300 grams of mushrooms, half of it will go to the pan with a bit of onions. We fry it and increase the taste. The other half, we treat it as the raw meat. It goes into the mixture. And also we use lentils. Lentils are there to bind everything together and increase the amount of protein. We put the lentils and put a bit of water and a bit of salt. They grow a lot in size. The mixture is almost the same. And also the rice is same. When we get it to the bowl, we put half the mushrooms in, and then we also add the fried ones. Then we add the lentils, then the cooked rice, the egg. Then we add the dried herbs and then the greens. Mince them all together. And then with a bit of flour, do the same. First the flour and then the egg, and here goes into the oil. So, taking a recipe, changing it into something vegetarian, could be very nice. Bahar loved this KADINBUDU when she was not a vegetarian, so we wanted to rebuild this with Burak for her. So we gave the name of this recipe as Bahar Budu, which is Bahar's Thai. So a vegetarian Bahar's Thai is also as good as the original. So take great care. See you next week.